Today I'm talking with the Polymathic Eric Wallace. He's an actor, photographer, and model, and a former sports ball player as well. He created the Polymath Playground, which is a way for people like me and him and others who see themselves as polymathic to come together. Really like what this guy is doing. He was even in a famous movie that you will be able to hear about later, as well as many other interesting projects and just ideas. I think you'll really enjoy this episode. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome to the Polymath Podcast. I am here with the Polymathic Eric Wallace. Please say hello to the innovators in the audience.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
So why don't you share something about yourself that no one knows about you?
I try to put all my stuff full blast on like social medias, but I am from North Carolina. I've played sports my entire life ever since I was able to walk and follow my phase. It's been basketball and football, some soccer, even some hockey when I was a kid. Never played baseball though. But I grew up to play basketball collegiately, professionally, as well as Australian rules football overseas professionally, American football here for the Carolina Panthers, and a couple of workouts for other teams, and also professional status boxing. So Polymathic Athlete already, and also I run Polymath Playground, which is trying to spread the word of polymath and connect people to avenues and resources to get them to the point where they can, reach their professional careers and goals. As well as I'm a professional model, photographer, and anything else that I haven't done, I'll probably do it within the next year. So
Awesome. And it's great to have you on here. Let's start off by saying what started the whole Polymath Playground concept?
I think a couple years ago, more than a couple, I was in Australia playing an entirely different sport than what I grew up on, basketball. I was playing Australian rules football for the North Melbourne Kangaroos. And I found myself just sitting one day just saying, I've always been one to like different things outside of the cliche, athlete, jock type stuff. I've always been one to take my studies seriously. I graduated second in my class out of high school. I always took my collegiate studies seriously, graduated in finance from DePaul and got my master's from Seattle U. So I've always been atypical. So my handle for a little bit was the atypical athlete. And I think I did a thesaurus search one day about what's a different word I can use for atypical. It's cooler. And came up on polymath. And I've always been fascinated with the Renaissance time, about the painters and just the era in general. Michelangelo, Donatello, just how creative those people were. And I settled on polymath, and I think it went from polymathic ambitions to polymathic university, and then polymath playground.
That's really cool. And it's interesting hearing your story about like how you discovered that word too. Personally, I don't even know when I first heard the word polymath. I remember hearing about Leonardo Da Vinci early on. Like I even did a project about him in like seventh grade, which was funny.
Yeah.
But hearing your story about like when you first kind of heard that and how it kind of evolved with your username too is really cool. And
Yeah.
So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to later on question, but I really want to know, what is a polymath to you?
When I give the definition, usually tends to stay around an individual who specializes in many different areas.
Mm-hmm.
Many people think you need to be the greatest in that field to be considered a polymath, or they think you need to be a world-renowned biologist as well as a concert performing rock guitarist. No, you don't. It's the innate and inherent characteristic we all have, that we want to do other things outside of our, whether it be 9 to 5 or our one passion. We also have 18 or 10 other different passions. It might be cooking. It might be, hey, I want to be in a movie. Hey, I'd love to be on a CD one day. We all have those desires, and always hear, man, I wish I could do that. It's 2020. We have social media and everything, and YouTube. You can do anything you want.
You really could.
So, yeah, Polymath for me is just someone who is everybody actually, but someone who takes advantage of doing and doing the things they want to do outside of their supposed specialization. It's a quote from uh, Heinlein, and I always use this. It's actually one of my slogans on my brand. Specialization is for insects. If you
Yeah.
look at the insect, if you look at the ants or the bees or the whatever, they have one job.
Hmm.
They're either a drone or the queen. They
Right.
feed, they go find food, and that's it. Why are we grouping ourselves with insects where you wake up, you do your job, and that pipe dream
Hmm.
of like being in a movie or playing music at a coffee shop or learning how to cook or learning how to do whatever you wanted to do? Why is that a pipe dream? Why are we benching that or putting down the sideline when we have the ability and the resources to do whatever we want?
Exactly. And what you're saying is too is that everyone has that universal potential to actually
Mm-hmm.
do more. And I couldn't agree more. It's one of those things too where a lot of people look down on their potential. They don't think they can do much, let alone more than just one specialty. But we have such long lifespans in the grand scheme of things. It may be short, but in our perspective, in our viewpoint, 80 to 100 years for most people that they live on is plenty enough time to have multiple specializations on top of each other, let alone multiple careers.
Yep, exactly.
So you were saying how you were a polymathic sports player. How did
Mm-hmm.
football and really sports in general impact your life?
Playing on a whole different level and seeing a whole different way of living.
Mm-hmm.
Football's taken me places I never thought I'd go. Of course, growing up, I thought, playing the NBA, had some chances to play in the NBA, had some, summer league tryouts, some interest from some teams when I was leaving college and when I was in college. But my path took me to Australia to play a sport that no one had ever heard of. And, it was, football has been really good to me. It's got me in some doors that I never thought I'd get in. It had me meet some people I never thought I'd meet. And, it's really been a staple in my life to actually open up to even more of a polymathic existence. So,
Well, it's interesting too because it almost seems like you had to specialize first before becoming a polymath in a way.
exactly, exactly. It's, when I explain it to children, or middle schoolers or high schoolers, I um, I walk down their hallways. Every school looks the same. You walk down the hallway, you got a room here, a couple steps forward, a room here, a room here. But your destination is the door at the end of the hall. We're all headed towards that door at the end of the hall, whether that be for me it was NBA, or whether it be I want to be the greatest photographer or cook or whatever. But we don't realize that within those doors, there's something you can learn. And there's like there's a drama club. There's a science club. There's a, something that you can learn from every single one of those people and bring it to what you're doing. And whether it might alter your path, or it might just mesh into exactly where you're going, and it might help you
Yeah,
faster. So,
it might help us kind of get past like that hurdle of one area by combining something else from another area. And that's
exactly.
really kind of how true innovation happens too, where when someone is a specialty in multiple areas, if not at least two areas, they could find that bridge between those two fields of knowledge, and that bridge ends up becoming a dramatic innovation.
Exactly. The best person to have done that in history is Leonardo da Vinci.
Yes.
I'm sure you read it. I'm sure you read the Walter Isaacson book. Most people overlook the fact that to himself, painting was, yeah, I'm pretty good at it.
Yeah.
I'm good at it.
Maybe
It
a little
pays the
tear.
bills. Yeah. But, Isaacson even, highlights it when he wrote a letter leaving Florence to go to Milan.
Yeah.
Um, he offered his services in 9 other different things for painting. Whether that be, it was mainly military experience. He never had any military experience. engineering, entertainment. Of course, he was one of the greatest entertainers as far as like making engineering pieces for like on stage and stuff. Um, his insight as to how to rewrite cities to allow the rivers to go through the cities. This is Leonardo da Vinci, like thinking outside of just painting. But I'll always say when it came to him sitting down to paint Mona Lisa, it was his curiosity before then, like learning a whole bunch of different arbitrary and trivial and stupid and dumb information from many different places. He had already seen it.
Hmm.
And then he sat down and painted Mona Lisa, and we're still going to look at that painting 500 years later.
Right.
So it's one of those things that everything you learn culminates to your end all legacy.
Yeah,
Actually made the shirt last night. Curiosity killed the cat. No, curiosity skilled the cat.
I love it. And I love how you're taking like other kind of areas or memes or jokes like curiosity killed a cat and adding that polymathic influence onto it too. That's why I really
Yeah,
love your merch. I was mentioning earlier that your merch is very unique and very awesome. I'll leave a link in the description for people who want to check it out. Totally go look at this guy's stuff.
yeah. I mean, I just love spreading the word. My thing is, if I got a big shirt with polymath on it and you don't know what polymath is and you come up to me and ask me what a polymath is, I've done my job.
Yeah, got people
Yeah,
curious about it. I
exactly. We can have a
someone can,
conversation.
yeah. You were talking about the Renaissance era. How might someone embody, in your opinion, the Renaissance soul?
Um, man, I think that's pretty easy these days. We consume ourselves with Instagram, YouTube, all of the social media outlets, and we're noticing the creativity from other people, even TikTok for that matter.
Right.
Um, we see the creativity coming from a whole bunch of different people, whether it be memes, whether it be a dance, whether it be a quick Vine was huge on us, a quick 6 minute video, 6 second video to convey a whole story and make people laugh. Um, we have that Renaissance soul already. Yeah. What do you do every day? I'm an accountant. What do you do outside of that? Oh yeah, I make funny videos about, accountants.
Mhm.
So we have that Renaissance soul innate in us. Always say it, kind of in a joking way, but it's, um, look back, remember back to when you were a kid. Monday, you were a cowboy. Tuesday, you were a police officer. Wednesday, you were a firefighter. Thursday, you were playing house with the girl you had on down the street. Friday, who knows what you were doing.
Exactly.
We all want to do something else every day, and we're always looking at a different career path or a different idol as to like, man, that'd be real cool. Yeah, we might not be Adele or Beyonce or Jay-Z, but that doesn't mean you can't, with your music ability, sing at a coffee shop or sing at your relatives' birthdays and stuff. That doesn't mean you can't do it. So a lot of times we limit ourselves because we think we've already found what we're supposed to be doing.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And we limit that mindset of like what we could do because of what we are doing now. And when we open up our mind to the fact that we already do a lot of stuff, like you're saying, we already do many different areas. Even as adults, we have a plethora of interests that we all like to do. We all have hobbies that we really like to do. And even if someone doesn't, they might have some kind of action they take on a weekly basis that could be expanded into something down the line. And so
exactly.
going in that kind of mindset, there's a lot of potential people have, almost like this multiple potential. So, what is
hmm
multipotentiality, do you think?
Um, I think that I think here in our country, we always hear the American dream, and you hear the slogan of "You can do whatever you want to do. Just pull yourself up by your own bootstraps," or you know, you have the means. I think that within us, and of course, there are different circumstances and conditions, and demographically, financially, family conditions that you might not be able to do exactly what you want to do. Of course,
Mm,
that's just reality. However, there is space to find the resources. It's not possible. And we have in us this ability to branch outside of what pays the bills or what we've settled for to create something that we actually love or do something that we actually enjoy doing. Let's go back to the example earlier. You could be an accountant that actually hates your job. You could be, but with social media and certain outlets, you can branch out and say, "Hey, I want to make funny, something videos. I want to educate people on how to make guitars. I didn't know you make guitars." That's the comment I love hearing. I didn't know you.
Yeah.
I
You
didn't know you did this too.
Well, when we first met, I didn't know you were a model at first, and I thought that was like really cool. Like, oh, this guy's really expanding out. I think you had mentioned something
Mm-hmm.
about you being an actor and photographer, and then just a
Mm-hmm.
little bit later, you might have said something about model. But when I looked at your stuff before you said that, I looked into it and like, hey, this guy is a model too. Like, man, he has so many different talents. He's already someone who is a sports player in the past, and then now
Mm-hmm.
photographer and actor and model. And it's just interesting how you evolved over your years as well.
Yeah, I mean, for me, some of it's just being in the right place at the right time, kind of like the movie Yes Man.
Mm-hmm.
Um, hey, you want to do this? Sure, why not? Sounds like it's fun. Um, I think the biggest production I was in as far as like movie that was Avengers Endgame.
Yeah,
Even if it was even if it was a background role, I was there for 2 days. We shot a whole bunch of scenes. It was just one of those things I wanted to be a part of. I
yeah,
would have did it for free.
yeah. I bet.
Actually, when I booked it the first time, it was on a Monday. They called me back Wednesday saying, "Hey, we don't need you. We got too many people." I was like, "Oh man, dang it." And they called me back Thursday saying, "Hey, we need you here tomorrow because we can still use you." It's like, "Hey," got in the car, drove down to Atlanta, and was there for the whole weekend. I was like, "Man, I would have did this free just to be in the Avengers movies because I love those movies." So,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I've been in the industry for years, been modeling for 8 years, ever since I was in Australia. And that was one of those things of, yeah, I play sports, but my agent was like, "Hey, you want to model? You want to take some pictures for Tucson's U, Ralph Lauren?" Yeah, sure. That was when I was about 60, 70 pounds lighter, had the six pack and everything, but still modeling today because the big and tall industry is on the up and coming up. So, no, I'm just trying out different pathways and enjoying all of it. From there, started picking up a camera because the photographers I shoot with every time I go to DXL shoots, really cool guys, John Corvey and Quentin Dadoba. Um, love shooting with them. It's like, hey, look like you're having a good time. And it's like, hey, what do you think I should, what camera do you think I should get if I want to be a photographer one day? But just get this, get that, and shoot for a week and see if you love it.
Yeah.
Shot for a week about a year ago, and I've been shooting ever since.
I'm not super familiar with all the cameras, but I've been looking at different cameras for live streaming and for actually
Yeah.
replacing this webcam here. What kind of
Mm-hmm.
camera do you have?
The camera I got was the first camera I got was a Sony A6000. That's a good
Oh,
starter camera. Really good, still a good camera. I mean, pros still have that in their bag. I know a lot of pros that take that for like street photography because it's small, compact, and everything.
mm-hmm.
But Sony's are really good. Sony A6 lines, 6.1 to 6.5. Those are really good cameras, especially for vlogging
Yeah.
and streaming and stuff. So, and I think, yeah, I mean, I'm a Sony guy. I mean, I went with what I knew. I've always been PlayStation and Sony headphones and stuff. So I was like, Sony sounds good. Then a whole bunch of people saying, yeah, Sony's cool. They make good lenses. They're doing some good stuff. So
You know, it's funny. It seems like you're kind of like a Sony fanboy. I grew up with like a lot of the consoles, but I only always ended up being like a Microsoft fanboy. So I had Windows
yeah,
Phone, Xbox, all that stuff. I tell you.
I think I had the first Windows phone, like the HTC something.
Mm-hmm.
I had that phone. I've been Team Samsung for almost a decade now. I'm not a big fan of iPhone.
Yeah, me either.
But I do like their MacBook. I'm talking on the MacBook now, but and their iPads. But as far as like everyday driver phone, I've always been Samsung, and I've loved Samsung. I never had any issues with them.
You were speaking about Avengers Endgame. I really want to go into that again because that's super cool. When I found that out, I was like,
Mhm.
"How did you land the gig? Really? Like you said they called you back, but how did you land it in the first place?"
Um, well, I've been in the actors stratosphere for I'd say about 3.5 years now.
Mhm.
Um, it came about just being on the right website. Um, my agent, also one of my agents, are in Atlanta. He sent me the email saying, "Hey, if you want to do this, respond back." And actually, he sent me that Monday. I responded back that Monday. They called me back Monday, and you know, that's how the story went. But it was one of those things like, actually, it was under, when they do their projects, they do it under code names.
Yeah,
And their code name was Project Mary Lou.
yeah,
And I was starting to read the description of what they were looking for, and I knew what projects were being filmed in Atlanta at that time. I was like, yeah, I saw Project Mary Lou. I was like, yeah, this is Avengers. I know exactly what this is. And
yeah,
then when she called me, one of the cast directors called me. She was like, well, I'm pretty sure you know exactly what project it is. So, we're looking for, your type build. So I was like, yeah, I'll be there.
yeah. Awesome. You said you were on set for 2 days. What was it like on set?
It was awesome. I didn't get many pictures because they are serious about secrecy.
Yeah.
As soon as I get there, you sign the sheet. They take your phone, put it in like a protective zip bag thing, padded, and then like, yeah, all right. And but it was real cool. They basically bought out the whole studio lots.
Mhm.
One stage was for holding. We were all just there getting dressed, and like barbers and makeup and everything, and costume and stuff. Just sitting there with a whole bunch of the other actors. The coolest part, one of the coolest parts was it was where the props were as well. So on the table, a big long table, there's a box full of Star Lord's stuff. There's Captain America's shield. Um, where I was a Jabari warrior, so we had all our spears, all the Wakandan spears and stuff of different tribes. Um, didn't see any of Iron Man stuff, none of Iron Man stuff. I did see like Asgardian shooters, guns and stuff. So it was a real cool experience. The second day we shot two scenes that didn't end up making the movie. Um, but I didn't get to meet um, Chris Evans
Really?
nor Chadwick, but their stunt doubles were there. So we were doing like, hey, act like you're fighting in there, right there. So it was cool enough.
Did you make it in the movie? Do you think? Like, can you see you? Like, if you know where you are, can you find yourself?
Oh yeah. Oh, I know exactly where I am
Oh,
in the movie.
I'm sure that was like first thing too.
And the first day it was simple. We just take it through you've seen the Avengers Endgame.
Oh yeah, multiple times.
At the end where everyone comes through the
Spoilers.
dimension ring.
Spoiler tag right
Yeah.
here.
Spoilers. If you haven't seen Avengers Endgame,
What are you
what
doing?
do what are you doing?
Yeah.
But when everyone comes through the dimension rings, um, when all of the Wakandan soldiers are Bombay, we're marching forward. I'm in that, and that's one of the scenes that came through. So yeah, I could find myself there.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. I started nerding out when I was making the list for our questions. I do it kind of in phases sometimes too, and I often try
Yeah,
to research the guests even the day before, even if I'm already done, just to make sure I didn't miss anything. And I was watching like a video the other day of like you being interviewed by somebody, and this kind of leads into one of the next questions I was going to ask too. But like basically, you're talking about how you're being in a movie, and I was like, wait, what? He was in that movie? And I started
yeah,
nerding out about it too.
yeah.
Are you going to be in phase four?
I would love to. I'm actually keeping in close contact with my agent, and he's keeping an ear to the grapevine about what projects are being filmed where. Most of the stuff aren't being filmed until next year or maybe end of this year. Of course, with all the stuff that happened now, a lot of stuff got pushed back.
Right.
Um,
The whole phase.
so yeah. So the main thing I really wanted to be in, and I'm sure I still can be, was Black Panther 2.
Black Panther 2.
Um, I had, yeah, I definitely want to be in that. And some other stuff. I, guys like Jason Momoa and The Rock and, Duke, Mbaku, they're really helping the big guys out and getting in more into acting.
Hmm.
Cause like a lot of times we're giants. If you're 6'4", 6'5" and above, you're a giant. And it's hard to frame. It's hard to cast and everything, but, um, you know, with the times, cameras are getting better. Directors are pushing the envelope
Hmm.
and, it's allowing us big guys to do more, more acting on screen. So,
Definitely. And I think that you being in that movie would probably be a fantastic deal. And if I ever dip my toe into acting, which I've always thought about over the years, I'll make sure I hit you up
mm-hmm.
first.
Man,
Uh,
it's anyone can do it.
and so I saw something from you. Can you tell me a story about the Polymath Playground Fedora by Mass Creativity? That
Yeah.
was what I saw when I saw that video too.
Yeah. That was a cool collaboration with a very dope artist I found on Instagram.
Hmm.
I actually saw her work through another friend of mine he is, actually his name on Instagram is, Renaissance Jones.
Oh,
So
cool.
he's all about Polymath too. So he's mostly what he does, he makes films. He makes, short films. And, I linked up with him, started following him. I met him through one of my through a boxing class. Really cool guy. And, saw he, had a hat made. And I was like, that's cool. So from there, I followed whoever made it, and she said, "Hey, I do customs too." So I was like, "Let me grab 3 or 4 kind of like shirt products I already have, or my logo and ideas. I'll put Da Vinci Gang on there, Polymath Playground, School Toy,
The
and
Vitruvian Man I saw.
The Vitruvian Man is on there. I forgot what else is on there too.
It was pretty
But
bad.
I was like, hey, do whatever you can to put this on here. And she's a great artist. She does paints it by hand on the brim.
Wow.
And, from there, I was like, yeah, this is cool. I got actually hanging up on my wall as opposed to wearing it every day. So it's definitely a piece of artwork.
Yeah, definitely. I was honestly a little bit jealous. I was like, I need to make my own hat like this. I always wore fedoras and trilbies growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
She does some good stuff. I was like, actually, actually wore it to, my first, um, Polymath Playground, fashion show
oh, cool.
last year. I
Perfect.
came out with it. Yeah.
Um, so we were talking about Leonardo da Vinci beforehand, and considering how that influenced a lot on that hat too. Before I ask any other questions on the sheet, I really want to know what is he to you?
Well, I call myself Avengers Apprentice.
Mhm.
For me, he's a, inspirational legend.
Yeah.
He's a teacher that's still teaching 500 years after his demise.
Mhm.
A lot of people don't. I mean, we notice, Mona Lisa. We notice, the Last Supper. We can go see, Ginevra da Vinci. We can go see those paintings, but we don't realize just how big of an impact he had on life itself. How he impacted some of these innovations that you might not even known of, or, someone pointed out the fact that, yeah, he invented scissors too.
Yeah.
Like the thing you are taught never to run with, and you use at least once a week. Yeah. Um, when I was reading his, biography by,
Walter?
Isaacson, yeah, it was pointed out that he can be accredited as the father of, dentistry,
Yeah. And ocular
because
science as well.
exactly. So he drew so much of the inner workings of the body that
Mhm.
he understood it to a point where even the scientists were like, wow, that's detail. And his drawings are still in the books we use today to learn dentistry.
Mhm.
So he's just a teacher that's still teaching today, and he's an inspiration because, he wasn't a genius because you think you need to have like 180 IQ to be Leonardo da Vinci. No,
Yeah.
he he was just a regular guy born out of wedlock to
Mhm.
a mistress. Um, he was gay back in the day. That was something frowned upon, but you know, but he was gay in that time. Left-handed,
Wrote
so he had was that
he wrote like because he was left-handed, and I think because he wanted to like hide his stuff, he like wrote left-handed and backwards too.
yeah, exactly, yeah. So he had everything stacked against him,
Mm-hmm.
and nothing was handed to him. He didn't even get any of his father's
Like his like a
uh,
title and whatnot.
in, inheritance or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that all went to his brothers and his siblings. He didn't get any of that.
Mm-hmm.
But for him, he was just so curious and he was so meticulous about his notes and he wondered how things work and the inner working of some of the most trivial and dumb things. It led him to bringing everything together of like, oh, okay, when
Yeah.
I paint this painting right here, which I'm going to hold on for 3 years because still don't think it's finished. This is easy. I've seen this. I've seen that. I've seen that on something else. I've seen that on something else. Okay. When I paint Mona Lisa, I'm going to paint a painting that's so great. You're going to look at it 500 years later.
Mm-hmm. Well, and
Yeah.
he I don't think he ever finished the Mona Lisa. I think he still has stuff he wanted to add to it because as we
Yeah.
grow, as we learn new things, even in other specialties, that
Mm-hmm.
that knowledge can be applied to other areas, like we were talking about earlier.
Exactly.
And he was still like they studied the Mona Lisa, and he was still adding strokes even into his late life. And I actually
Yep.
resonate with that too because I do some graphics design, some spriting, and some character development on my own time, my hobby. And I
Mm-hmm.
was actually on a podcast recently, Time for Your Hobby, talking about that. And I was talking about how I don't finish projects very much. I barely ever finish anything because I always want to add more to it. If I got better at the skill, I want to update what I did before to make sure it matches my skill level. Problem is, we're continually evolving, so that skill level always evolves.
Exactly. I'm learning that um, more and more every day with photography.
Mm-hmm.
I'll look back at some of my first shots I took when I first got a camera. I'm like, oh, that was a great shot. And now I look at it now. I'm like, that
I
was
could have done better.
not that good, right? You just start to see how much better you've gotten, how much different you would have did something. Sometimes you look back at a photo that you took in or a design you've made, maybe even a week ago. You were like, yeah, I would have did something different. I learned this new technique here, or this
Mm-hmm.
new angle, or this new lighting. That man, that shot would have been way different if I did it different here. But you're right. I mean, Da Vinci was holding on to Mona Lisa. I think he had it on him for 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
um, just on his person, just as he was going about it until he finally was like, okay, this is Mona Lisa. But he's always been one that he was one that never really finished projects.
Yeah.
He was infamous for that.
Yes.
Um, but the ones that we did get from him, they were incredible.
Yes. Um, you were talking about the Walter Isaacson book. Have you ever heard of
Mhm.
listened to the audiobook?
Oh yeah. When I do read, I do both at the same time.
Oh,
I
one.
read and listen. I
That's
read and listen to audiobooks.
I never thought of
Yeah.
it like that. I've always done one or the other. Like I've done kind of like a repetition cycle where
Yeah.
either I read it and then listen to the audiobook or vice versa. And that
Hmm.
way I can get both perspectives, kind of like what you're doing there, just at
Hmm.
different intervals so it can be more concretely cemented in my brain. But yeah, I think reading them and listening to it at the same time, that's a very interesting concept.
I just know the way that my brain works.
Mm-hmm.
If I just do one or the other, my brain gets easily distracted. I just know me over the years. Even when I was a kid, before I got serious about academics, um, reading was something I never really was strong at.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't really enjoy it. I think the two books I can remember in my past that I enjoyed reading, To Kill a Mockingbird and one of the Harry Potter books. I think it was Chamber of Secrets.
Great books.
Those are two books that held my attention and I actually read. But other than that, I'm ashamed to say a lot of before high school, I went through school without actually reading the books or the assignments. But when I got to high school, I was like, yeah, okay, let me actually read this stuff. Nowadays, I know how my brain works and I've known myself for 31 years now. If I just read,
Mm-hmm.
I'll read at a slower pace and probably won't comprehend as much. If I just listen, my eyes can start wandering. Like, okay, hey, what's going on? If I do both audible or audiobook or audible and read at the same time, it allows me to actually create a live moving movie in my head. That's exactly what I'm reading. Yeah. I can't do both, either one for a long period of time. But if I do both, it actually allows me to read a lot faster than I would. When I go on these model trips, I tend to finish a book within 2 or 3 days.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
I I've learned over the years some techniques to try to help with that too. I definitely
Mhm.
resonate with you about not wanting to read much. Back in high school, I'd only ever read like not fiction books, so like Deltora Quest or Bionicle, something that was like interesting to me as a concept or just fiction to escape. But nowadays, as we're older, we're reading more nonfiction. But I liked how you're listening to audiobooks and reading at the same time because you're taking up two senses at the same time. Usually, when
Yeah.
I listen to audiobooks, I go for like a walk, so that way I'm stimulated
Mhm.
physically and I don't have to necessarily look anywhere besides just not running into stuff. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting. Definitely.
I think if it's like a podcast, I could definitely do not have to look at it. But I do also like watching what I'm seeing or
Mm-hmm.
what I'm hearing. I'm a big Joe Rogan fan of his podcast, especially when he speaks to people that you wouldn't even think Joe Rogan would want to talk to, like pandemic experts or Elon Musk and people like that. So, yeah, so I like the visual aspect of learning and taking in information,
Yeah.
but I also want to pair it with something else. And that could be kinetic too. Um, could be I'm listening to someone tell me what to do, but I'm also doing it at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm getting at least two of the three, I feel like I'm learning best.
Yeah, and it's really a matter of self awareness too. So
Yeah.
you understand yourself well enough to where you can be like, hey, this is how my brain works, like you said, and this is how I
Mhm.
feel like I actually get the information across. Because, like you said, if you get just one or the other, you're not stimulated enough by that new concept, a new novel concept, to retain it. But with those two really taking up two of your strongest senses, you're really able to kind of absorb it more deeply.
Exactly. And I think everyone should learn exactly how they learn best. So, sometimes it takes us a while to learn to know thyself, but once you do, there's nothing you can. That's why I actually love YouTube. I'm rarely listening to music anymore these days. Whenever I'm in the car, I'm usually listening to some type of YouTube channel. A lot of it these days are camera channels, just stuff about photography and stuff. Um, not necessarily watching it in the car, but like you can still hear it. Okay, yeah, all right, yeah, it's a good point. I didn't even thought of that. Sometimes the stuff I already know, but it's just hearing it again and hearing someone else say it, and like, yeah, I know that, cool. So, but when I'm sitting down, um, love watching YouTube because you get two of the mediums here and there. And then a lot of times, if it's photography, I can pick up my camera and say, okay, yeah, I didn't never even knew that setting was here, or I could do that or something. So yeah.
I was just about to ask you, have you read this book here, How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci?
I need to read that book. I thought I read all the books on Leonardo da Vinci, but
It's my
definitely going to get that one.
Yeah, it's my favorite here. There's actually a workbook that goes alongside it too, which I think is really cool. Both Michael Gelb, who's the one who made that one, and Walter Isaacson have like a lot of podcasts and keynotes about it too. So they went on speaking tours a lot of the time too, talking about their books and about Leonardo. So that might be really cool to kind of getting into at some point.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to pick that one up.
All in all, let's get back into some of the questions here. Kind of going back into your whole modeling career and whatnot. You're still obviously quite built. What factors go into your workout routines?
Oh man, You asked me at the wrong time because I've been lazy for the last couple of months. But ever since I retired from the NFL, kind of took a hiatus from the gym, and then COVID didn't really help. I was like, yeah, I want to get back in the gym, and all the gyms closed down. But for me, one guy that keeps me motivated is my boxing trainer.
Okay.
Um, it's a good place for me to escape, just getting out of the house and escaping, punch a bag a little bit and
Mhm.
keeps me in shape. And a really cool guy. I've known him from when I was in high school. He used to be a journalist, and he'd write me up when I was playing basketball there. But for me, it's just it's actually very polymathic. It's doing other things. It's playing a different sport just for the fun of it. Going and joining a soccer league if I can, or
Yeah.
playing some basketball every now and then, boxing, as opposed to just going to the gym and doing the mundane lifting heavy weights. Um, cause I've done that, did that in college, did that for football. Of course, that's important, and I lift weight. For me, it's a lot about making it fun and doing something different that I might not have thought of actually doing that day, going for hikes, especially as a photographer now, taking the camera and like going over to Crowder's Mountain here in Charlotte, or driving a couple of hours going to Linville Falls. And for me, it's just mixing it up, switching it up, and doing something different.
Totally. In fact, something that I didn't even write down on here, and I don't even know why I didn't mention it, but in PolyInnovator, my brand here, we have different phases so that I talk about different content. So the first phase is self-education, which you obviously really resonate with. But the second phase, I'm actually going to be making it
Mm-hmm.
about polymath exercise. That's what I'm coining it as, because it kind of takes some
Mm-hmm.
idea of CrossFit, where if you look up the Wikipedia definition of CrossFit, it is just taking multiple skill disciplines of different exercise belief systems. So heavy lifting, calisthenics, isometrics, all these different systems that people use, and just trying to combine it into a single thing. And I think a lot of the application of CrossFit has been overly hyped, and a lot of people get into it a little too much, but the actual concept itself is really cool. So I wanted to pivot away from that idea and create polymath
Yeah.
exercise, where you're being divergent in what pools you're pulling from. So personally, I've always been very calisthenics. I'll do
Mm-hmm.
pull-ups, I'll do push-ups. I even have a story on the blog and some of the posts I've had about doing 300 push-ups in one sitting. And it's interesting how that challenge can
Mm-hmm.
really change your character in a way.
It's interesting. You're actually you've tapped into the secret of most like strength and conditioning coaches on the collegiate and professional level, because you think every day it's just go in the gym and lift and do the same thing you do every day. That's going to get boring, and at some point it's going to
Yeah.
become counterproductive. So a lot of times they're figuring out ways to incorporate what you need to do in an entirely different package or an entirely different
Yes.
sport. That's why you see a lot of professional athletes. They cross train during their off season. They'll maybe go play baseball or soccer or an entirely different sport. So, and even when I was in college, we found ourselves like playing volleyball one day, or basketball players doing a boxing session in the gym. So it's all
Yeah.
about cross
I,
training.
I love how you understand that, and how like, cross training is a way better way of saying it too. I, I don't know if you remember me mentioning it before, but I'm a personal trainer as well, and also a aquatic fitness instructor. So I've been
Yeah,
teaching swim lessons for a better half a
nice.
decade, as well as water aerobics, moving joints, water boot camp, personal training. And a lot of the things I try to apply in those teaching sessions is trying to get people to be divergent and very dynamic in what they're doing, changing it up every time, even if it's the same movements, changing what I call the three variables of exercise. You have speed, intensity, and power, basically. Or no, volume. Not intensity is power, but like speed, intensity, and volume. And so volume could be either the amount of time it elapsed or repetitions. You know this too, but just in case the audience I know. And then the
Mm-hmm.
power can be how much effort you're putting forth into it. How intense is it? Is it heavy? Is it high resistance? Are you doing some kind of parachute training for football? Are you doing parachute training in a pool even? Or and then there's the actual speed of it too. How fast you're going can dramatically change which twitch of muscles you're using. So it's interesting how by changing just one variable,
Exactly.
let alone multiple, safely at least, can be dramatically impactful for your exercise.
It's a it's usually a triangle. It's usually a triangle. I mean, you learn that with photography. There's ISO, aperture, and shutter speed, and you change one thing, you got a completely different photo. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
The shutter speed and whatnot. It's a
and then kind of what we and kind of what we talked about the learning, auditory, visual, kinesthetic. So
I love how you brought that back around. Where do you see photography headed?
yeah. I actually see photography being a huge catalyst for some of the things I want to do with Polymath
Okay.
Playground. Um, I feel like with photography and um, it allows me to more closely create artwork and projects kind of like that of um, our father of polymath, Leonardo Da Vinci. I'm not a painter. I can't paint Mona Lisa. I'm not. I used to be able to draw as a kid, but it's just not my thing. But I do see ways that I can tell a story and capture um, the essence of being a polymath in a photograph. And there's projects that I'm actually going to start working on within the next couple of weeks to put out like photo books or photo albums or eventually someday even start a polymath
Ooh,
magazine. Um, and that's a lot of that caters to photography, being able to tell a story through
definitely.
an image. And yeah, so that's kind of where I see it. It's a good catalyst that's going to help push a whole lot of stuff forward. Even the clothing brand, I got two pictures of the clothes and stuff. So, and being able to use a camera will really help um, push the message forward.
Yeah. And I love how you kind of answered one of my questions too about where Polymath Playground might evolve as well, because you're using that photography as the next kind of pivotal point for your development, but also for that
Mm-hmm.
brand's development as well. I think it's very interesting because we're actually
Mm-hmm.
quite similar in nature for what we're trying to do overall. I think what our eventual goals might be different, but the actual progress that we're making, we're both becoming creators. And you were saying how you're not a painter. I'm not a painter either. I can't do anything with my
Mm-hmm.
hand like that. But I think that you and I both can have that digital creativity. I mentioned earlier that I do pixel art and
Mm-hmm.
you're doing photography and this kind of digital creative. It's a kind of evolving platform. People have been doing it for decades now. People made pixel art in the 80s for games and people have taken photos for over 100 years now. But the actual digital aspect has dramatically changed both of those worlds. And I think that's using those skills, using that ability to convey a story, like you're saying, in this medium with this brand, this online reputation that we're creating for ourselves and each other, really. I think it's a very beautiful aspect to our journey.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we all have that's the trick of it too. Just trying to find where, um, especially when it's a very saturated world now, especially in creativity as well. Trying to find that niche of where your message will be heard, and in the digital era, it's tricky, but with collaborations like this, makes it a little
Well,
bit
and I
easier.
think that just having this conversation so far, we've had those tech problems here and there, but each time we started back up, we were able to dive right back into it. And I think that, the collab with someone like you is something that's very enjoyable, but also fruitful because we could create this awesome content. And so people who want to know what a podcast is, having two
Exactly.
polymaths talk about it is a great way to do it. And I'll even be in your magazine when
Yep.
you get that developed too. So Leonardo's insatiable curiosity has led him down like an
Mm-hmm.
interdisciplinary path. That is also how both of us have evolved as too. His ability to visualize the flow of air and the physics of water, let alone like just being able to see the flight of a bird, so to speak. What do you think we could do as just ordinary humans, not great like him? How can we get that level of mental acuity? You were talking about IQ earlier, but I think it's kind of different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I talked about IQ. I was saying, you think that to be someone like a polymath or someone that is has his hands in many different pots and is able to bring it all together. You think you need to be a genius, um, when Leonardo wasn't. He was not a genius. He was not a Stephen Hawkins. He was not, he was just a guy who was curious and curious enough to ask questions, take notes, go study what he needed to. And if he didn't know, he asked the experts.
Yeah.
If he did not know, he would ask the experts about, okay, how do you do this? I think, sorry, what was the core
How
question?
can we achieve that level of mental acuity? So that kind of analytical slash intuitive mental state.
I, uh, I watched the interview of Isaacson actually. He said when he was writing the book, it inspired him to do more of what Da Vinci did. When he did go for a walk, he instead of just doing a walk for walk's sake and trying to get it over and finishing, he would slow down and just take a look around and say, "You ever wonder how or why or what?" Starts to ask different questions and starts to ask the mechanics of something or the reasons why, the backstories to different aspects of our everyday life. Because a lot of times we get caught up in our own time and being so fast and being, hey, I got to get to this, got to get to that, or I don't have time, I don't have time. We forget that the luxuries and amenities we do have, um, if you just take a look around and sit for a second and be like, oh, there's something I can learn from this, or the person who set it up, or the person who made it, or the person who thought about it. It's like, wow, this is actually a genius idea. I have that epiphany moment every time I
Really?
get on a plane. I'm like, this is a very heavy tin can or metal contraption, and it's literally flying. And we all know Da Vinci was
Yeah.
fascinated with flight, and we achieved it because of a lot of what Da Vinci had already tried to do with his flying machines. But we're flying in heavy metal machines, and every time we take off, I'm like, this is
Yeah.
incredible. And I'm pretty sure some people have flown so much, or they don't see the beauty in it. They just see okay, I'm sitting next to someone. Oh, this is annoying. They don't have any more pretzels, or can't get my drink. That crying baby in the back. Oh God, here we go. We get annoyed about I guess, the uncomfortness of some stuff, and we forget to realize you're actually
Yeah.
flying, and it's just being able to. We can achieve it by just slowing down sometimes and
Being present.
being curious.
More, I feel like is more kind of clear point there. Like
Yeah,
being present and adapting your perspective and being that so that you can be curious. I feel like in order to be curious about someone, you have to change your preliminary thought processes. So you have to be not just someone, but something in
mm-hmm.
general too. Like you have to sit down and relax, take a step back, and then see what they're actually trying to say. Like when I host these podcasts, I try to stop myself from speaking and just blank out my mind and let that person come into me. Like when you're speaking, try to blank out anything in my thoughts so I can just hear and listen to what you're saying. You know?
Yep. It's because everyone has a different experience or a different perspective. That's one thing I love about Joe Rogan. He's Joe Rogan. I mean, it's Joe Rogan, but you can tell he just loves speaking to people from different walks of life or different expertise and different areas of fields and stuff. So yeah, exactly what you were saying.
One of the things I was kind of disagreeing with almost in a way with you is that you say Leonardo isn't a genius, which I agree in the sense
Mm-hmm.
he probably didn't have a high IQ because I don't know what his genetics were.
Mm-hmm.
IQ can be built from a lot of different factors. genetics, background, upbringing, what you're learning, that kind of thing. So maybe he
Mhm.
didn't have a high IQ, and I'm not sure who came up with these, but there's
Yeah.
actually multiple types of intelligences, and you probably know.
And multiple types. He was a. I agree with it as when I say he's not a genius. I agree with Isaacson when he says he's not a genius. However, he is, in fact, of course, a legendary genius. His creativity, his curiosity, the way he would be able to bring everything together, and his artistic prowess, um, and the fact that he was so confident in whatever he went after to tackle,
Mhm.
he was determined to learn it to the best of his knowledge and incorporate in what he did. Yeah, he was by all means a genius. 2020,
Well,
genius.
and
But I think when it comes to
I was just gonna
yeah,
say is that I think that I wasn't necessarily saying that like you were wrong or like that. I was just saying like there's the different kinds of
yeah.
intelligences, such as like the emotional intelligence and logical based, mathematical, spatial, mathematical, spatial things similar. But then there's also courage intelligence. So someone having the courage to take action
Mhm.
is almost a type of intelligence on its own. You have to understand the problem itself, the problem that you're facing that's causing you to have fear in order to surpass that to have courage. Sometimes you don't need to understand it fully, but understand why it's making you feel that way. So that's almost a mixture of intelligences. So courage intelligence is a mixture between the emotional intelligence of yourself and others, intra, introspective, so being able to
Mhm.
understand yourself, ex, I think extrospective, so being able to understand others, or empathetic, I guess you could say. I can't remember the exact terminology he was using, but it's a combination of intelligences that I think that really makes Leonardo a genius. It's like we were saying, I don't think IQ genius.
Yeah.
I don't think he had the super highest IQ. He wasn't even that much. I don't know if he was super high in mathematics or something like that, but he obviously needed to know mathematics to build the first parachute and whatnot.
Well, Isaacson, I think he alluded to it in his book and sometimes in his
Mm-hmm.
interviews. Um, some people think he might have been a little bit
Mm-hmm.
illiterate, but not to the point where he
Yeah.
couldn't read, but like not the greatest of readers. So it's like, oh,
Almost
okay.
in a way that actually kind of helped him because he wasn't able to learn Latin at the time, which is what all the books were written in.
Yeah. I think it was not necessarily illiterate. I think it was I think a acute dyslexia or something like that.
Mhm.
But I think I heard it. I was like, yeah, that's interesting. Because I think that was big. That was Isaacson's biggest messages he wanted to get across. He was like, we can all be Da
Mhm.
Vinci.
And I think
Of course, he can't be a Leonardo da Vinci because he's Leonardo da Vinci, but we all have that innate ability to, you know, be as impactful as Da Vinci
human
was.
beings are interdisciplinary by nature. We have to be skilled at multiple areas, even just to do a basic job, let alone a specialty or multiple specialties.
Mhm.
And I think that just being a polymath is almost the evolution of what most humans should be. I do think, like when I thought about this, I do think that we do need to have some specialists, especially in some very niche fields, like
Yeah.
doctors and lawyers. There may be a need for
Hmm.
specialists, and even in the medical field, though, I think we still need to have more interdisciplinary people, someone who knows multiple areas in order to find that innovation to move forward.
Hmm.
And I think that Polymath Playgrounds, PolyInnovator, and I even saw one called the Polymath Project out there. There's other people who are kind of same mindset as us.
Okay.
We're pioneering this kind of concept back from that's super old, ironically, but we're pioneering it in this modern field, trying to bring this old concept to our modern lives. And I think that you and I both are doing
Yeah.
our best to do that. Where do you think that your plans will be for the Polymath project over the next 5 years? You're mentioning the magnet and whatnot.
Yeah. There's a lot of things I want to do with it. But the main thing I want to do with Polymath Playground, of course, is it makes sense is to connect people um, to the resources they need to branch out into the new hobby, career, or interest that they want to do. A lot of times, I get this question a lot, especially from my
Uh-huh.
athlete colleagues when they find out I've been modeling for a long time or acting for a couple of years or now photography. I get the question of like, how do you get into it, or how do
Mhm.
I get into it? Of course, there's YouTube University that can help you with, kind of finding ways out. But a lot of times it's a connection of, you need to get connected with
Mhm.
this person. It might not be a general person nationally, but it could be in your city, or in your area. This person will help you get to here. This person will help you get to here. Um, Ideally, at some point, I want to get to a point where Polymath Playground is a actual,
Mhm.
could be a brick and mortar, but actual place where I can hold, whether it be talks, whether kind of like a TED talk, whether it be Q&As, whether it be workshops, or um, I want it to be almost like a year-round job
Yeah.
fair, or career day, where adults and young alike can come and like sign up for a class, or listen to a talk from a lawyer, or a photographer, or whatever, and learn something you might not have even known from someone who was right there telling you exactly how it is, and like, hey, this is how you get into it. If you want to do
Yeah.
it, yeah, keep your job or whatever you want to do, but hey, you can also do this. But I also that's one thing, I just want to connect people to the resources it takes to get to, um, tapping into their inner polymath again. Because I did have to clear up something, not a while, a couple times, few times. Some people blow back of the specialization is for insects. I'm not saying if you're a specialist, you're a drone, or you're not making anything of your life, but specialists are great.
Yeah.
You know, like you alluded to, we need specialists. Um, and even myself, I'm like, man, I wish I could just
You
specialize
can't
in
just focus
something,
on
and
one thing. It's
that be
hard.
and that be it. Man, I wish I could just, you know what? This is what I want to do. But for me, my brain is always like, yeah, I want to do this, but I also want to tie this into it. That's just how
Yeah.
I am. Um, but I definitely respect the specialists who, yeah, I specialize in this part of the heart, and I do surgery on that.
Yeah.
That's
I
awesome.
love it. It's beautiful.
That's very awesome.
Well, and it's that polymath mind, so to speak. Like you and I both, and probably some people listening to this. It's like we literally can't do just one thing. It's just if the thought of being a monomath, if you want to say that, is almost
Hmm.
painful in a way. In fact, I created
Yeah.
PolyInnovator for multiple reasons. Obviously, to do stuff like this and to create awesome content for people. But one of the things is to build it as a foundation for the career of my life. And so I wanted to be able to do all
Hmm.
the different areas in my existence. Like I want to be able to do creative stuff, more innovation and technical stuff, and even work in smart city development down the line, and work on all these different areas. But if I wanted to get even just one of those careers, I would have to go to college and then get a degree and just to even get my foot in the door. Whereas with this, I can build up my history, my career through each of these phases and through each of these endeavors throughout the decades of the life. And I think that you have that kind of same potential and same aspect of mentality too. And something you said too that really resonated was the Polymath Playground being brick and mortar. It's one of those things that's kind of like we really want to get it done, but we don't know exactly how we can go about it just yet. Before I started PolyInnovator, I started what's called the United Living Construct, which I meant to be like a hub of innovation,
Hmm.
somewhere I could bring people together, preferably like polymaths or people who are interdisciplinary, or teach people how to be interdisciplinary if they're wanting to, and be able to push the world forward towards a type 1 civilization. And I think that Polymath Playground is a perfect
Hmm.
fit into that same idea.
Yep. It's just, like you said, it's just trying to figure out how to do it in today's age. But once we do it, it's gonna spur a new generation of polymaths.
One more question before we wrap up. I saw that Idris Elba is
Yeah.
your hero. What about his personality and
Mhm.
principles do you really get you moving?
Man, there's something about Idris Elba. Him as an actor. Um,
Hmm.
and of course, the accent is pretty cool. He's a cool dude. Um, I and it cemented it for me one day when he posted something on Instagram.
Hmm.
Uh, think he was like on a movie set or something. He does these videos every now and then, just talk to his followers, just 100% straight up, no script or anything. Um, and he was just telling people to, hey man, if there's a dream you want to do or something you want to do, don't let people say you can't do it. I even saved that video. I think I reposted it on my Instagram once or something. He's basically just saying there's things you still want to do. There's things you want to, there's different aspects of life that you want to tap into. Um, and he gave his example. It might have been singing or something like that, or. And for me, I heard him. Yeah, what I was hearing was, yeah, be polymathic. If there's something you want to do, go do it. Learn. There's no. You're gonna hear no here and there every now and then, but keep going until you hear a yes from someone.
Keep moving.
Um, yeah, I like you, Giselle. I think when I think the question was asked, I think it was in college. They asked if anyone would play you in a movie, it would be like Idris Elba. I don't even know what movie I had in mind that I put in that I put him on the thing for, but yeah, he was just a really cool
I
dude.
love
So
it, and I think that's the emotional impact behind your adoration of him is something that's something anyone can learn from. To either find their own hero like that if they haven't found one already, or to look at the hero they have now in a new light, and just kind of understand how the message that they convey can really impact your life. So I want to thank you for coming
yep,
on the show. I think that's the perfect guest to have someone polymathic as well. Where can people find you online?
man, I am especially definitely on Instagram, Polymathic Wallace. That's my main page. I take photos and post my photos to Photo by Polymath. Pretty easy to remember to this audience. And other than that, just YouTube channel will probably be coming when I really buckle down and turn the camera on and start doing some behind the scenes stuff. But yeah, I'm definitely on Instagram and Twitter, Polymathic EW.
Yeah.
Everything
I'll make
Polymath.
sure I'll have links in the descriptions down below. And if you want help with that YouTube channel, hit me up. I have been doing it myself, and I understand that hurdle of becoming a new YouTuber or podcaster. It's scary at first. You don't want to hear your own voice speak and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
All right.
oh, I love hearing my voice.
Yeah, you do. Then perfect. I had a hard time with it at first, but what is our final call to action for the audience today?
I think I always say just keep going for that. Keep going for the end of the hall, but take a look in the doors that you're passing. Just take a look and learn something from there. Take a pamphlet, watch a YouTube video and learn something new every day. And then there's something that you're really passionate about. Do that every day. In your spare time. I know we got 9 to 5s. I know we got COVID. I know we got kids. I know we got school. I know we got just life. But we are still the captains of our own fate. So masters of fate, captains of our soul. So just pick it up every day, and next thing you know, a year later, you'll be, or 2 years, 3 years, 4 years later, quitting the job you don't like and doing something you really love just because you gave that interest some life. So
Exactly. And they say that journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. So yeah, thank you.